Hey everyone, welcome back to Advancio Talks. We're here with our third episode and we're super excited to have you join us. If you're new here, welcome to the show. And if you've been following along, well, thanks for sticking with us. You are awesome. And for those just joining us, Advancio Talks is where we dive deep into the tech world with some seriously smart people. We're talking CTOs, industry experts, and the brilliant minds shaping the future of technology. So today we have an incredible conversation lined up with Elian Savodivker, and that'll make you think, and definitely have you walking away with something new. So we're covering everything from latest industry trends. We're going to be talking about the Latino Business Action Network, and we're also going to be talking about a number of other very, very interesting items regarding Elian's journey. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get this conversation started with Elian. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we're about to dive into. So let's get started. Elian, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today. It's a great pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carlos, and thank you for having me on the show. So that everybody knows, my name is Elian Savodivker. I'm the Senior Director of Programming at the Latino Business Action Network, LBAN, and really excited to cover some of the programming and research that we do here at LBAN.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you, Elian, for having joined us today. So we're going to be talking about, as I mentioned at the beginning, about a lot of very relevant items. But before we get into that, I'm going to ask you to please, for those of you who are new to you, tell us a little bit about you, your background, anything you want to say about yourself that's going to be of interest to our audience. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, Elian Savodivker, I'm the Senior Director of Programming at LBAN. But if we take a step back, I was born in Argentina. To a great family that decided to immigrate to New York back in 1995, a very different New York than what you see today. And that became our immigrant experience. We moved around a little bit. My parents were business owners. So we had two different businesses while I was growing up. I got to experience what that, not just Latino immigrant experience was like, but also what that entrepreneurship experience was. I along with my brothers, worked in the family business, was able to support and help the family grow the businesses out. And I got to see firsthand what the challenges were for an immigrant and for a Latino family to become entrepreneurs in this country
Mhm.
and some of the things that came about it. Later in life, I moved to California with my family, and I became really sort of inverse in tech and the startup ecosystem and the startup world. I myself created two different companies, one that I sold and one that went through sort of the VC investment cycle, and we ended up closing, but it was a great experience. And what that led me to was LBAN, the Latino Business Action Network, where I'm able now to support founders through their own journey. And so my experience, both with my family businesses and my own businesses, have really helped me to provide support and feedback and resources to our founders. And so that's a little bit of my background. Today, I live in Los Angeles, California, where I have a wonderful 7-year-old son. And again, I get to be part of this great ecosystem that's supporting founders, that's moving when it comes to investment on Latino and Latina founders, especially in the tech space.
Right. Thank you so much, Elian, for telling us a little bit about your journey and your background. I'd like to move on into asking. Well, let's go back to the beginning and tell us about your. I believe you were in higher education. So tell us about your transition from higher education to leading Latino business initiatives. What sparked that pivot, if I may ask?
Yeah, so I was able to run these workshops and companies that led workshops on higher education and education for teenagers and young adults, all about entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship has always been big for me, and especially as a way to create not just wealth but opportunities for others. And when I started reading LBAN's research, which is research that comes out of the Stanford University that details how Latino and Latina entrepreneurs are doing, what are their challenges, what are the things that are going well. I really started to realize that this was the place and this was the circle that I wanted to be a part of. And so when a position opened up to run programs, I felt like with my background running these companies and running these workshops, I could be a really useful resource for founders if I got the position. And this was back in 2019 where I was able to land the role and get started to work on what we were doing at Alban. But I want to tell you, Carlos, at first, I really didn't have a lot of information about Alban and what it really was about. And once I got started, I realized the power that being in this network really was about, right? And the power of having a network of Latino and Latina business owners was really about. And I share the story and I'll share it very quickly. But we had a founder come into our program. This was the first program that I had run, but the organization had been around for a couple of years. And when I interviewed this candidate, I asked him, what are you looking to gain from our program? And he said, Elian, I'm a Latino business owner. I live in a part, he lives in Colorado. There's not a lot of business owners that are Latino and Latina. So I don't really have a lot of people that understand what I'm going through. And he joined us for the kickoff weekend to our scaling program. And we were walking to lunch, and this was within the first 4 or 5 hours. And he was getting very emotional. And this is uh, a guy that owned a welding company, definitely not somebody that you would expect to get emotional. And what he mentioned to me was, he said, within 4 or 5 hours, I found my people. I found a place where I can connect and people can understand what I'm going through. And that's when I really started to realize what Elban was about. It was this place that obviously educates and gives resources, but ultimately gives a network of these founders that are Latino and Latina that want to share their experience and that want to support each other. And that's really where the power of the network comes in. And that's where Elban really becomes this really strong organization.
Okay, yeah. What I'm hearing is that that's what you just narrated is what can we say? Is it safe to say that is what drew you to get involved with the Latino Business Action Network, and that's what drew you to their mission?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think at first I wasn't very clear on it, but within months I realized that that network of founders that are able to connect with each other, are able to support each other, it's such a powerful and almost addicting nature of look at what we're building, right? And look how we can help each other. And I think ultimately that was what drew me into the organization.
Okay, excellent, great. All right, Elian, for those who might be unfamiliar, let's say, with LBAM, what's your elevator pitch on how you're changing the Latino business landscape, for example?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so for us, what we're doing is that we're building programs and research that give Latino and Latina founders the tool and the network and the resources to be able to not only build businesses, but be able to scale them and grow them, create jobs and opportunities, and really impact the US economy. And that's what we do at LBAN. And we do it through the research, we do it through the programs, but more importantly, we do it through that ecosystem by connecting founders to each other that are able
Mhm.
to support and really be there for one another.
Um, that is that kind of leads me to the next question: is what would you say from your experience? What would you say are the biggest barriers that Latino entrepreneurs face when trying to access capital, and how is Elban addressing them?
Yeah, so you hit it right on the head. The biggest need for any, not just Latino founder, but for any founder is access to capital. Capital is the number one tool to scale and grow your business. Obviously, you need to be educated and you need to know how to run your business and the right strategies and the right networks to tap into. But
Mhm.
capital is the number one tool.
Right.
And what we notice is a lot of times organizations will sort of focus on this educational part, right? Which is, hey, if you know how to run your financials, if you have all your ducks in order, have your paperwork in order, then it shouldn't be an issue. And what we found was that even for Latino founders that have everything in order, have great financials, have great credit score, they are still being biased when it comes to credit lines, when it comes to venture capital. And so ultimately, what we found to be the biggest resource is having a network of capital providers that want to support the Latino and Latina community. And so one of the things that we do during our program is we hold a capital matchmaking event where we bring in banks, VCs, angels, really anyone that's providing capital that is supportive of what Elbit is doing. And more importantly, that they see that Latino founders are the future of this country. And
Mhm.
you're able to bring in capital providers that see the future and that see that Latinos are in fact building these extremely strong businesses. And then they have these sit down meetings with them. And on top of that, you add a network of founders that have connections to these types of capital providers. You're building this resource heavy group that is looking to support and provide capital. And so that's what we found to be the biggest source of success is when we're able to bring everybody together. We're able to bring in these capital providers that are really focused on supporting the Latino community.
Um, you connect. Let's see if I get this straight. You connect entrepreneurs with opportunities and markets. Can you share a success story, for example, that can exemplify this work?
Yeah, so there's a ton of different success stories, but I can tell you one on sort of the traditional brick and mortar business. It was a moving business. She was looking to buy a building and was running into problems getting these loans from the traditional banks.
Hmm.
Uh, Again, it was a very strong business, but it was a service based business, which often is a little harder to get investment or credit lines because there's not a lot of collateral that you can offer as a service based business. And when we brought her into the capital matchmaking event for the end of our program, she was able to connect with a regional bank that was able to secure a loan and help buy the building that they're
Hmm.
in. Since buying the building, the business has doubled in size.
Wow.
And again, they accredit it to, hey, look, we were able to buy the building. Now we're able to have the kind of cash flow and the credit lines to really be able to focus on scaling growth. And so that was one of the examples on sort of the traditional brick and mortar side.
Hmm.
On on the technology side, right, we're looking at venture capital and we're looking at equity investments. And one of the greatest scenarios, we have an accelerator program, which is our second program. Our scaling is sort of our marquee bread and butter program, but then we introduced an accelerator program for tech companies about 2 years ago. And in the first tech program, we had a business that was close to dying, right? They were running out of cash. They just weren't having the success with venture capital. And what we found was we were able to connect them to angel investors that were really interested in what they were building. And we're able to give them the type of investment that could hold them over. And they went from almost closing to now being
Hmm.
able to do 500,000 ARR
Wow.
and to be able to raise close to $1 million. And that was all thanks to angel investors, again, that came in through our network and were able to support this business and take it from almost dying to now being a successful seed based startup.
Hmm. Good. Yeah, I think that's a great example. Now, I am understanding that that was a successful story, but let's say that let's go the other way around, the opposite direction, and let me ask you this: what would you say, in your experience, are the greatest misconceptions that investors or corporate partners often have about Latino-owned businesses that might that might hinder their efforts?
Yeah, so the greatest or I would say the biggest sort of myth that we were able to break through, the narrative that we were able to break through, and this was through our research a couple of years ago, was that Latinos are not in tech businesses. And what we found through our research was 19% of US owned Latino owned businesses are in tech. And when we compare that to white owned businesses, it's at 14%. So 14% of all white owned businesses are in tech. Meanwhile, 19% of all Latino owned businesses are in tech. So
Mhm.
Latinos are over indexing in tech owned businesses. So when
Okay.
you look at tech, typically you don't think of Latinos, right? And what our research shows is that you should be, because the latest sort of growth in tech will be caused by Latino-owned businesses. And
Mhm.
so with that piece of data that came out a couple of years ago from us, we were able to then have conversations with venture capital to restructure the narrative and to show them, hey, look, if you're not investing in Latino-owned businesses, you're missing out. Because when we think about who's building the next tech unicorn, the next tech IPO, it is going to be a Latino.
Wow, definitely. So, all right, now I'd like to segue into a different aspect of your role at Elban, and I mean strategy and growth. In your experience, what would you say that are the real strategies that are behind Latino entrepreneurship expansion that most people don't see? How
Yeah,
can you tell me about that?
absolutely. So one thing that I will mention is what we focus on with our two programs is operations and really team culture, because one of the misconceptions in business is that your product is the driver of your success, right? That you have a product and that product is what's going to end up helping you to scale. And one of the things that we really focus on is people are the driver of your business.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you need a good product because that's essential, right? Your people can't do much if your product isn't good enough. But having a good enough product is not enough. Having people, having the right culture, having the right structure for your team is really critical. And so, what we focus on is, are you driving the right strategies for your team and for the people that you're hiring to be able to drive the growth? And I'll show you this in an example. We had a founder that raised their seed round. They raised a significant seed round. They raised about $10 million for their business. So they
Mm-hmm.
hired about 50 people based on that seed round. And then they went through the program. And about halfway through the program, they realized that they had hired wrong, that the team that they had hired wasn't, in fact, the team that was going to help them drive and scale the company. And so what they did is they took the tools from the program, the learnings, the education. They actually had to fire half the team that they just hired.
Mm-hmm.
They rehired. And now that company has raised their post Series B has raised over $65 million. And when we talk to them about, well, what was the success factor that led you to that? They talk about LBAN and they talk about realizing how to hire correctly, how to build the right team culture, because that was the driving factor in them being able to get to where they are today.
What about community and network building? What role do they play in Latino businesses' success versus individual hustle?
Yeah, so that's a great question. What I would say is, one, Latinos as a culture, we are very network based, right? We're very relationship based, right?
Mhm.
And our early research shows that when it came down to success factors, we showed that Latinos credited relationships as the biggest success factor in their business. And what we do with Elban is that we create these networks of capital providers, of business owners, of corporate partners, really everything that a business owner needs to successfully scale. And what we find is that Latinos do such a great job of integrating themselves into these networks and creating strong relationships. And sometimes that means getting a corporate contract that scales the business. Sometimes that means being able to access the capital providers that will support them and help them, right? And sometimes that just means finding other founders that will help them and help them grow the business, right? And even one of the things we've heard from founders is that they've been able to connect with other founders that are simply there for them, that help
Right.
them just through the everyday notion of running a business, right? It's not even just access to capital or all the other tools. It's literally just you're there for me. You understand what I'm going through. And so again, Latinos are very relationship based. We see it as a huge success factor, and our founders really drive our network to become such a powerful network.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good to hear because it provides very useful insights for the community out there who's thinking about these matters. Now, of course, we're we're 20 minutes into the conversation, and I really haven't touched to something that I think it's worth mentioning, and not only worth mentioning, but very important to mention, is technology, right?
Yeah.
Specifically, Elian, I'd like to ask you, what, how is technology specifically fueling the Latino business movement right now?
Yeah. So again, when we go back to that number of 19% of all Latino owned businesses in the US are tech based, right? So
Mhm.
so tech is absolutely driving um, Latino growth. And when we look at sort of the post pandemic and the digital transformation that businesses had to use due to the pandemic, we again see high growth that's happening with Latino business owners when they are able to leverage tech, right? One of the biggest sectors that we see that's continually growing is tech-owned businesses by Latino and Latina founders. Again, this is a segment that faces a lot of challenges and biases,
Mhm.
narrative that is discouraging for Latinos. But when we look at the numbers, when we look at what Latino and Latina founders are building, we're showing that they are building tech businesses. We're showing that they are trying to move the needle on that. And what tech allows us to do is to expand the market in a way that your traditional relationship or service based business can't. So, one thing that I will mention is one of the things that we see a lot of is traditional business owners. And we see it, for instance, in the cleaning business. So, these are founders that own your traditional cleaning businesses. So, they clean buildings, they clean schools, they clean buildings. And what they've realized is that there's a technology need that's currently not being filled. And what they've done is that they've been able to pivot their business to
Mhm.
still run their traditional brick and mortar cleaning business, but at the same time have built a technology business side by side that is now able to scale and grow. And so what we're seeing is these traditional business owners that maybe don't have a tech background, but
Mhm.
have seen a need for it in their industry, are taking that need and doing it themselves. And so we're seeing tech being overtaken by Latinos based on the needs that they see in maybe their traditional market.
Mhm. And are there any, would you say that there are any specific emerging technologies that could be game changers for Latino owned businesses?
Yeah, so obviously AI has really taken over right now and has been such a great tool for business owners, especially in the customer service space, because I was just checking conversation earlier with our groups, and somebody was talking about their customer service wait times are too long, and so how can they get a service, or how can they get a technology that can support them in this? And so AI right now is really big, and it's really helping business owners be able to leverage AI, whether it's through no code AI or through service based tools for AI. But that's really where we're seeing technology really impact business owners.
Hmm. And lastly is, well, I understand you have a tech background, a SaaS background, if I recall
Yes.
correctly, right? So how do you see tech solutions addressing traditional barriers in Latino entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways. One is that when we think about SaaS and when we think about technology, what we're seeing is that Latinos are able to leverage technology now to expand their markets, right? So where
Mhm.
before they were maybe stuck to a smaller region or a smaller niche market, now by leveraging technology, they're able to expand their market to different regions and to different markets, right? The other thing that we're seeing now, and this is something that I would say is the biggest factor, is that the Latino community here in the United States has gone from a consuming age to a producing age. And what that means is the average age of Latinos in this country has gone up, right? We're about a 29, 30-year old average age. And what that means is that there is more disposable income from the Latino community. And as we look at technology, and really technology is driving the US economy currently, that is what that age wants to spend money on.
Mhm.
And Latinos that are able to build tech businesses focused on Latinos and Latinas in this country are going to see a huge economic uplift based on the fact that the Latino consumer in this country today is earning more than it has ever before. So if you're targeting the Latino community and you have a tech aspect to your company, you're going to be doing really well in the next 5 years.
Excellent. Yeah, well, that brings a lot of hope for a lot of us out there. And well, we're coming up on time. You know, time flies when you're having fun, they say, right? So we still have a time for a couple of questions, and the next one that I have for you is specifically about let's call it practical advice. For example, how do you think that should Latino entrepreneurs should approach business planning differently than the traditional textbook models?
Yeah, so what I would say is I think a key driver when you're starting out is the longer that you can do what's called bootstrapping, which is build the business with its own capital and build the business by supporting it on its own, the better. Especially if you're building tech, right? The longer you can go without an equity investment, the better. But understand that there does come a time where you will need capital to really
Mhm.
flourish the business, right? And so the longer you're able to bootstrap and scale and grow while bootstrapping, testing your product, putting the product out there, building a niche market that really likes what you're building, the longer you can do that without taking in capital. Then when you do need to take capital, you have the upper hand, right? Because
Mhm.
when you go to an investor and you haven't yet built that niche market, the investor will have the upper hand because they're saying, hey, look, you're still in the beginning phases of your business. We want more equity for less capital. But if you're able to bootstrap longer, you're able to build your niche market, you're able to really test the product. When you go to that investor and you say, hey, look, here's my numbers. We've built great traction. Our customers love us. Our product is out there. We've tested it. Now
Mhm.
the terms become much more favorable to you. And so
Right.
that's my biggest piece of feedback, especially if you're building a tech product. The longer you can do the testing, the building, and the building of the niche market without taking in capital, the better.
Mhm.
The other thing that I will mention is today, and I mentioned this in the previous answer, there are more Latinos with capital than ever before. And obviously, capital needs to improve for the Latino community, but today we have more capital than ever before. That
Mhm.
means that there are more Latino and Latina angel investors than ever in the past. And so connecting with them and talking to them about your business, helping them build the business with you is really critical. So this is really the time to take advantage of the fact that Latinos have more disposable income than ever before.
Mhm.
They want to help Latinos and Latinas build businesses. So it's important to connect to networks like Alban, but many others that are out there that can connect you to angels that are willing to provide not just capital, but also expertise and networks to your business.
Right, right, absolutely. And finally, Elian, before we go, let's go to the final question that I have for you is if you could change one thing, only one thing about how Latino entrepreneurship is perceived or supported, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's this narrative of the businesses that we're building, right? We
Mhm.
typically get this annotation or narrative that we build construction and cleaning businesses. And trust me, there's amazing Latino and Latina founders building incredible businesses in the construction and facility management space. But we are building the next wave of technology, whether it's AI, whether it's climate tech, we are building what will be the future of this economy. And
Mhm.
the sooner people see it, the sooner people invest in it, the sooner that we're able to provide the right tools so that we can flourish the way we need to. Because the future of this economy is Latino and Latinas. The future of tech is Latinos and Latinas, and that narrative needs to change.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, and I couldn't be more aligned. And the only thing left for me to do, Elian, is thank you big time for having shared your insights and your experience and your background and anything that Latino Business Action Network is about with our audience. And by the way, before we go, let me tell you that we usually do a quick announcement of what's coming. And right now, we are in the process of confirming, and I'm happy to mention that we're going to have, you probably know him well, we're probably going to have, we're working on having Arturo Cázares, the CEO of Alban, and also Victor Arias, the board chairman. So well, I hope that at least one of them agrees to be on the show, and I'm sure that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that'll give some continuity to what we're trying to do with Alban here. And let me just share with the audience that I just want to encourage the audience to keep an eye right there on the down below. You'll see a link to the Advancio Talks podcast website. And that's where you should keep an eye on upcoming interviews and upcoming events that we're going to be conducting right here live, just like we did today. So expect our confirmation of either Mr. Cázares or Victor Arias or someone else that's going to be as equally game-changing as all of our guests that have participated with us. That being said, Elian, thank you. Thank you for having been with us on the show today. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carlos. Thank you.
Any final words of wisdom for our audience out there?
I would just say, if you are building a company, let us know. lban.us, the Latino Business Action Network. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn. We do different webinars and sessions throughout the year that are free and welcome everybody to them. Keep building. It's challenging, but being an entrepreneur is an absolutely amazing experience, and we're here to support all Latino and Latina founders, and any founder that wants to build and connect to our community. So again, thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, my pleasure. And there's right there the website and all the resources that Elian mentioned. I'm assuming that they're all listed there, right? So lban.us. That being said, until next time, you have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Elian, stick around. We're going to do a wrap up, okay?
Yep. Thank you.